Okay. All right. Download has been.
Thank you, Grandpa.
Are we downloading from the chat?
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, the link is on the chat.
Yeah, it's on the chat.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Abdul.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Hey,
I'm doing fine. I heard you were back.
Yeah.
All right. I don't.
come back.
Hey, Abdul.
How are you doing, dear?
Well,
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, give them heck.
When yeah.
these days, goodbye.
All right. I'm not seeing this chat thing.
You got it?
No.
Not, it's
So
going
did
into
you get
To
it?
the top of your screen and to the where you see the two people icon and then the message, you see the conversation, you should hit that.
They're going into Salesforce and then I got it now. Okay.
Salesforce.
Yeah. I had to go through Salesforce to get it in.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe because I had two Salesforce. I had us and I had
Salesforce.
You mean,
we had to use Salesforce for health. And every time I clicked
Oh, okay.
on it, it kept giving me the health Salesforce, so I had to come out of that some kind of way. Don't ask me how I did it, I don't know.
Yeah, why? Yeah, I don't know why you would be there.
But I got to us. New project request, project assignment, and assess project administration.
All right.
Detail.
Okay, about one more minute. We'll get rolling here.
All right.
Okay.
okay.
All
So
right. See y'all.
Bye bye. Nice to see you guys. Miss Donna, take care.
All right.
Yeah,
Miss
Hey,
me.
I love it. I love it, honey.
All right.
nice.
You better. You better.
Nice. Yeah.
I got a serious pro. Ba, 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 ba. Miss Donna gone?
No, I'm still here. I'm just looking at the agenda.
Oh,
Okay.
Y'all know I'm playing catch up.
We're gonna get started here. If everybody could turn off their video cameras and mute themselves while we go through here, unless you're asking a question. That'll keep down on the bandwidth and let everybody hear, hopefully. So go ahead and ask questions as we go through the training. You don't have to hold them to the end, but we do ask that you keep the questions onto the topic of today's Lunch and Learn. If you have other questions for Project Team, reach out to me afterwards or send a question over to support and we'll get with those. But we want to try and keep these Lunch and Learns on topic. So we have a lot to go over today. If you guys see in the agenda, it's not as much as it seems. A lot of it's just, one or two statements on each item. So we will go through the agenda in order. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here. And get into Project Team. So thank you everyone for joining us. This is the first in a series of project management training sessions that some will be Project Team, some will be other topics. So there's a lot going on. This isn't just a Project Team thing. The first two sessions are Project Team related. There's this session, and next month we'll do one on contracts, change orders, potential change orders, and payment applications. The first two sessions will also be offered 2 times per month for those that couldn't make one of the sessions. They can go to the other. So this session will be repeated on November 30th. If you have colleagues that couldn't make it today, we'll send out an invite after today's session for that. So without further ado, we'll get started with the agenda. So this is the project setup, project maintenance, project updates, things like that. So we're going to start this session that you just got a new project or that you're already using Project Team. So we're not going to go through how to log in or any of that. If you have issues with that, reach out to us at support and we'll help you. So we're going to do everything in the training project so we don't mess up any actual project. So you just got a new project or you just got assigned a new project. So the first thing that you need to do, or the first thing that we're going to go over is getting that new project. So if you need a new project created, talk to your EPM. All project requests have to come through the EPM or the client agency. The EPMs are aware of that procedure. So reach out to them. They will put in the request if the project isn't there already, or they will give you access to the project if it does exist, if you're taking over EPM or something like that. So your EPM and your program admins, your project team program admins are your people to reach out for that. So that's project request and project assignment access. Within your project, one of the first things you'll notice is there is a project administration section down here. So this is only going to be able to be viewed by project admins. When we set up the project, the EPM on the project and the project manager are the project admins. So they will see this section. Other users will not. It's up to you as the project manager. If you have an APM that's working with you under DGS, if you want to give them access to this, you can turn on their project administrator button, which will show you when we add new users. So a lot of the stuff we'll talk about is down in here. The first one being this project details tab. So this project details section has some basic info about the project and is also where you're going to put in your contractor and your CM if you have one, and your AE and stuff like that. So one of the first things you want to do on your new project is come in here and check this. So we fill out this info when we create the new project based on what we have. So you're just going to make sure everything's correct. Some of these fields, you click the edit button to edit it. You're not ever going to change the project name. You're not ever going to change the project number. You're not going to change the program or the address or the email address, obviously. But the project description, make sure that description is correct, updated as need be. If your project scope changes, what the project is changes, something like that, make sure this is up to date at all times. If your project the description's good when your project, and you don't have any major changes on the project, this field will never be changed. It can just stay. Project start date and project end date, these are used for reporting purposes, and this is the beginning of the project. So if it's a new project, it's when it started, when it was assigned to you, or when your EPMs, when the project was initiated. The end date is the end date for the entire project. So this is, end of closeout, when the project's done. This is not substantial completion date or anything like that. So beginning and the end of the entire project. And then the status. You're going to update the status of the project here. So you guys, most of you are used to this from Prolog and from using ProjectTeam already. So the status field being here is a new change in the last few weeks. We're developing a QRG with these changes that should be posted in the next couple of days. But your status is going to be updated here. We're going to be removing it from the project information form. We are also going to remove project description and program from the project information form, so they're only in one place. But for now, just make sure all this is correct. The legal parties tab, this is where the architect and the GC and the construction manager pull from. So this should say under business name should be to be determined until you have an architect. Once there's an architect on board, whether it's through your contractor on a design build or CMAR, or a standalone architect, you want to put the name of their business in here. Once this contractor will be TBD until you hire somebody, and then put their name in here. And if you have a third-party owner's rep construction manager, like you hire a firm to represent you as the project manager, as your on-site person, put the name of the construction manager firm here. So when you guys see the weekly report and it says architect, general contractor, and construction manager, this is where those fields are pulling from on that report. The project start and end date and the reports are also pulling from here. The status is pulling from here, and the project description is pulling from here. So you need to just make sure these are up to date. Again, these are not things that change frequently. So most of what you're doing here is just making sure that the information on these two tabs is correct and current. So that's step one. You don't have to touch anything else on here. A lot of it's not going to mean anything. We're not working in other countries, so you don't need to change your currency. This deals with the P6 integration with ProjectTeam, so you don't need to do anything there. Just handle those 2 tabs. So that's the first thing. The second one is the project information form. This needs to be up to date all the time. It's part of the project update that you guys do weekly. So for each of your projects, just make sure that the project information form is up to date and current. There should only ever be one project information form in your project. You don't create a new one every week. You don't ever create a new one. This is going to be a single document. So every week you just come in here, check that everything is correct, fill out any missing information that needs to be filled out, fill out the fields. We will talk about some of the odd fields that are in here as part of this. So go through, this is where the project manager is listed for now. So if the project manager changes and you've taken over a project, change your name here or change it to your name, not the old name. If you have an APM for DGS, put the APM in. And this is the weekly update, the basic, this week, here's the elevator speech update for this project. For those of you that are in the DCPS program, when the Grosso report's going to come out, because we're moving that to ProjectTeam from Salesforce, things like that, this is where that project update comes from. So you want to make sure that's correct and up to date. Again, most of these fields are not going to change every week. The building information we put in, so don't bother to put anything there. If it's blank, we just haven't gotten to it yet. The subject never changes because it'll be your project name. Enter your project gross square footage. This is different from the building. When we put in the building gross square footage, that's part of our building info we're doing, and the lot square footage. This is what the project covers. So if you're working in a 1 million square foot building and you're only doing 100,000 square feet, the project gross square footage is 100,000 square feet. So this is a field that many people have requested over the years, and we finally have a way to differentiate the project square footage from the building. Agency sequence type never changes. We set that number. Your program here, this is not going to change for you guys. Again, this is one of the fields that's over on project details that we'll be removing here shortly. Your project status, same thing. For now, it's here, but it'll also be removed. For those of you that have projects in Salesforce, there is a Salesforce project number. You can put that here or wait for us to tell you. This is part of the link to Salesforce that just isn't turned on yet. The Salesforce building will be the same thing. There'll be a pick list that you can pick that will link it to the building from Salesforce. Right now, we don't have the buildings in here because that link is not live, but that's why this field exists. So again, if you're not using Salesforce and the link is not live, you can ignore that. Every project should have this field filled out. This is the fiscal year that your project started. We have a lot of reports and a lot of requests from council members and things like that of when projects started or projects that were done in a certain year or started in a certain year. This is where that's pulling from. Again, for those of you with DCPS, that fiscal year and the Grosso report is going to come from here. Risk rating, risk explanation, those are Salesforce fields. Those of you that are using Salesforce would know what these are. Those of you that aren't, these are not things that you need to worry about right now till we go live, and we will provide more information then. Project category is also a Salesforce field. Don't worry about it if you're not using Salesforce and we're not live. Project type is important. There is a pick list in here. We set this when we set up your project based on what the project is. So generally, this is not going to change. Just make sure it's correct. Project delivery method. When you've met with procurement, you figure out how you're going to do it. Design, build, design, bid, build. It's things like that. There's a pick list in here. Pick the one that applies. Pick your lead certification level or choose, I think it says no lead certification or something like that, or NA. Pick that if that's what the plan is for the project. And then again, here's your project description. You can cut and paste the same thing between this and the project details. This is another one we'll be removing. Enhancement project and enhancement budget are to do with DCPS stabilizations in Salesforce. Ignore those if you're not needing them. Client agency, again, we set this up when we create the project. So if the client agency is not going to change, just make sure it's correct. Do put in your client agency contact name and information here. That's whoever's in charge of the project for your client agency. Your program manager is your EPM. We put that information in when we set it up, but if for some reason it changes, a new EPM takes over, go ahead and change this to the correct EPM. DCPS coordinator, this obviously has to do with schools, and this is another one of those fields that was required for Salesforce. Ignore it and leave it blank if you don't need it. This is essentially the PM from DCPS if you're on a DCPS project. Project manager and APM we went over, update we went over. This milestones collection down here, again, is tied to Salesforce and something in Salesforce. So ignore it if you're not using Salesforce. These do not pull into any reports that we're doing or anything like that. So if your dates are wrong, we'll go over how to get your dates correct in the meetings. But changing them here is not going to do anything. It's just a Salesforce link. So again, at a minimum of weekly, you should be in here checking this out, making sure everything's okay, updating it, and putting in that week's update. We run draft reports for the weekly reports on Wednesdays, and we run the finals on Friday mornings. They go out automatically. They're on a schedule. Gilberto sends them out, but the project team sends them to Gilberto between 3 and 5 in the morning. So that when they go out on Friday, you can't, there's no updating for that Friday. It's already done. It's whatever was in the system when it ran at 3 to 5 that morning. The next one is actually missing from the agenda. I apologize for that. I will add it, but that is the project updates form. And this is the rest of your weekly update. So this form, you can either create a new one each week from scratch, or if, you know, not much changes week to week on a lot of these bigger projects. So you can come into your old one, you can click this little button and hit clone. It'll clone exactly what you had last week, change the date, and update anything that needs to be updated, put in your new information with your new date, and hit save. So these are all of your hot issues, completed activities for this week, or, you know, for the past week, activities in progress. A lot of these activities in progress this week will move to activities completed next week, depending on what they are. So just make sure you have at least something in all of these. Even if there's no update, put the date in a dash and put no update or no concerns or something like that. Budget and schedule comments are key, as well as up here at the top, budget and schedule status, the red, yellow, green. If you have a status that's yellow or red for either of those, the corresponding comments field should have the reason why it's yellow or red, and anything that you need to convey to your EPM or the executive team, things that need to be done, things that happen, solutions you're working on, any of that should be conveyed in these comments. If your budget or schedule status are green, it should just say the date and then on budget or on schedule. Okay. Permit comments, anything to do with the permit. Permits were issued, permits held up. You know, we're not trying to post blame here. You're not looking to say it's so-and-so's fault. Just put in the comments of what's going on with permits, anything to do with utility. Technology comments is mostly dealing with Octo stuff. You know, if they're putting in server racks or equipment or something like that, you're held up, you're waiting, you're ordering, whatever it is. And then other pertinent information is anything else that should be included in that report. Anything else somebody should know for that week for your project. And then when you're done, the best thing to do when you're done is hit save and share. I haven't completed this, so it's not going to let me, well, it might. Okay. Save and share it with the project manager share group. Because of the auto share capabilities within ProjectTeam, if you share with the project manager share group, it's going to automatically populate to the other DGS users that need to see it. There is no auto share for anybody outside of DGS. Those share groups don't factor into this. But this will, your senior PM, your EPM, the executive level team, all of those people, budget, finance, everybody that needs to see it will see it if you share with Project Manager Share Group. And that goes with any form in here, actually. So those three things are your weekly updates. The project details tab, making sure all that's right, the project information form updates, and this project updates for each week. Those make up the majority of the information that's going into the reports that are going out. That's what your EPMs are looking at. That's what the exec team's looking at. We have other reports that you guys probably don't see that are like budget and status, schedule status exceptions. They, the exec team and the EPMs can run anything in the portfolio or the programs that are red or yellow for either of those. So this is all giving everybody the info. If you keep this stuff updated, your reports are going to be correct when they run. So the only other part that goes into that is the P6 stuff. So we'll touch on that a little bit as we go forward. So again, first things you should do when you get the project are go create all of those and update all of those, and then you should continue that weekly throughout the project. So now you've got all that done, your project's in, you've got everything updated, you're keeping it updated, weekly reports are going on. So adding users, that's our next one. So there are two different types of users. There are vendor users and there are DGS staff users. DGS staff users can also include other dc.gov people, just because of the way ProjectTeam works. Everything works off of the domain name and the email address. So because everybody's dc.gov, they're all the same company. So if you need to add a company user, there's one way to do it, and a vendor user is another. Couple of nuances on that. If you're working with a CM team on a DGS project, look at the contract. If those people are hired as third-party construction management firm to assist a DC PM, whether it's a consultant PM or a staff PM, they are vendors. They are construction managers on the project. So even though they may have a dc.gov email address, they are not DC users. And that goes into security and access. So you would invite those users as vendors through the directory and give them access to the project using the construction management share group, your construction manager. If you are hired or somebody else is hired as staff augmentation for DGS, or you are an FTE, then you would be added as a DC.gov or DGS user through the other way we'll go through here in a second, and you would have access to the project through there. Admin projects, if you have like the consultant companies that are working with DGS on the programs themselves, even though they're acting as DGS PMs on their projects, for their admin projects, they will always be a vendor. Okay? Think of it this way. If you're a PM on a project, even as a consultant, you have the ability to approve invoices and act as a DGS representative. You don't want somebody having that same access to their own contract and their own invoices in the project. They are a vendor in that case. So make sure you're given access to through the right vendor type for people. It was very similar to Prolog, where people had two different accounts. It's a little easier here, but just make sure that's the first thing you need to think of is what is this person's role? And again, check the contract, talk with your EPM. If you guys have questions, reach out to support. We'll help you figure it out. So the two different ways to add users. If it is a dc.gov user, whether that's client agency or DC or DGS staff, you will add them down here through the user section, because we set up their account in here generally, and they already exist. So you'd click on users, you'd come in, you'd hit add, you type their name in, check their box. If they are going to be a PM or an APM and they need to have administrator access to that program project administration section, check this box. You have to check their name first. Check this box and make them a project administrator. If they are not, they're just working with you on the project, not everybody from DGS needs to be a project administrator. So leave them as no if they're not, and then you can just click add. You can add multiple people at one time. If you clear this, it'll go back to the list and you can, select somebody else, check them, you can check them here, check the box here, whatever you need to do. So it's not, you have to do one at a time. So once you've added the users to the project, so if you're, say you're in the schools program and you have the senior PM team that you work with, they're not added by default in the template like some people are. You're going to need to go add the senior PM that you're working with on this project as a user, and put them in the right share group. So we do have a template. You can see in here there are a number of people already on a project. Most of you guys have noticed when you get your project initially and you share something, there are like 22 people it shares with. Those are the default DGS users. Robbie is set up in the closeout group. Those of us that are administrators are in the administrator share group automatically. The finance people are in the finance group automatically. So you're just adding additional people that we don't know about. The two people that we set up when we set up projects are we add the executive program manager, and we give them project administrator access and put them in the executive program manager share group. And we add the project manager, give them project administrator access and put them in the project manager share group. The one exception to that is for DCPS stabilizations, we also add Carrick and put him in the senior project manager share group as a project administrator. But anybody else from DGS that's on your core team from your program, you will need to add and put them in the correct share group. Okay. Now on to share groups. These share groups are set up by default by DGS, and these are the only share groups that should ever be in here. So, don't edit these, don't add your own share groups. All access to forms and fields and all security for every user, vendor, or DGS is controlled by what share group they are in on each project. Okay, so everybody you put on your project needs to go in the share group that corresponds to their role. To run through these really quick, you don't worry about admin, that's our team. Archibus has to do with an integration, don't worry about that. All of your architect and engineer users, put them in the architect engineer share group. That gives them access to things that the architect and engineer needs access to, gives them the ability to start the architect engineer workflows or see the workflows, all of that stuff. Even if you're on a CMAR design build and the architect is underneath the GC, the architect still needs to, the users from the architect company still need to be in this share group. They still use it just like any other architect would. Assistant project manager, this is your DGS assistant project manager. Put them in that share group. Auditor, this is one, if we ever have to audit a project, we can give the auditor access. It's read-only access to everything, but we'll handle that. Budget, the budget group, these people on a normal project that's not a training project, this is set in the template, and the budget team, Cassandra's team, Ebony and Tama and Cassandra, they're all in here. So don't adjust that. CCS executive, this is Paul, Tiffany, and Alam. They're set in the template. They're going to be in there. Client agency, any of your client agency users that are working with you on the project, put them in this share group. They'll have access to what they need to. Closeout is for Robbie, and Robbie's in there in the template, so you normally won't have to touch that one. If you have commissioning going on and you hire a commissioning firm, your CX people go in here. Any of those users. Construction manager, again, this is really designed for third-party construction manager, owner's rep type deal. It gives them access to see things and act on certain things. So this is not, if procurement issues your contract to the GC and calls it construction manager, that's not them. This is for DGS owner's rep construction managers. If you're on an admin project, like my contract for Jacobs, on that project, I would be in the construction manager share group because that gives me the access I need on the admin project as a vendor. Cost estimator, self-explanatory. The cost estimator should be in here. If you're working with Ash Ash should be in this group on your project so that she can see what she needs to see. If you hire a third-party design review firm or a constructability review firm, put those users in here. You'll give them access. This is for future use. We're not really using it for anything right now. The director's office, currently there's nobody in here. There shouldn't be anybody in here, but if the director's office starts using ProjectTeam or somebody from their office, you can put them in here. If they ask to pay attention to your project and have access to your project, you can put them there. Same with the mayor's office. This would be CA and mayor's office, council, any of that future use. They have their share group. Your EPM goes here. If the EPM changes, the EPM should put themselves in the share group, or you should put them in the share group when you add them to the project. We do set this up initially, but sometimes EPMs change. If you work with somebody from DGS facilities, they're using the project, put them in here. Finance is set up by us. We take care of that one, so don't worry about it. Excuse me. Finance 2 is for future use. General contractor, anybody who's building anything at your site, this is where they go. Anybody. This is your GC. Inspectors and material testing. Some companies are doing inspections and materials testing. You can put them in both. They have pretty much the same access. They're split because your CM inspectors can also be put in here if need be, or if you hire somebody that does just a single inspection, like an envelope consultant or something, you can put them there. Excuse me. So your industrial hygienist can be put here. You know, anybody who's inspecting anything on the project, this will give them the correct access. Anybody who's doing any materials testing, this will give them the correct access to that. Miscellaneous consultant, this is the catch-all for anybody else. If we hire legal services, if we hire, community outreach consultants, anything like that, this is where those people would go. This is not used very often. We have used this occasionally when we have 2 GCs on a project. We would put the second GC here just to make sharing easier, but this is it's a catch-all. Portfolio division, if anybody from them works with you, this is DGS procurement and legal. So if either of them ever get involved on your project, you can put them in this share group. This project, this is a future use thing, so it's not really set up to do anything right now. Project manager, that's obviously the project manager for the project. If you are going on vacation and need a second person who's going to take over just while you're gone, but they're not going to be the named project manager, you can also put them in this share group and just not change the name of the project manager on the project information form. They'll have the right access, but you'll still be listed as the PM. Safety, if you have a safety consultant or DCPS has an internal safety person, they're in this share group. Salesforce is for the link. Don't worry about that. This is our scheduler. This is DGS. So Jawid is in here in the template. This is not for your GC scheduler or anything like that. And then senior project manager can be anybody anybody who's above you as a PM, but not the executive program manager. So you can use that for what it needs to be. It's kind of a catch-all, more of an access thing. So again, these set access and security to forms, fields, workflows, sharing, all of that stuff. So make sure you're using these correctly. If you have a question on where to put somebody, please reach out to support and talk to us. Don't create a share group. Don't edit a share group's name, anything like that. If you create a share group and put people in it, there is no access and security set up for that, because that's a whole back end part of creating a share group. So you're not going to give them access to anything correctly by creating a share group for their company. These are set up for use. So we can help you with that.
Hey, John, I got a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a stakeholder on my project, and the only information that they should be privy to is taking a look at the drawings. So unbeknownst to me, I did not know we couldn't create new share groups, and I did. I created a share group called Stakeholders and gave them permissions just to see the drawings. And the reason why I did that was because originally when I gave them access as a client, they had access to a lot of different things that I didn't want them to see, like change orders and contracts and things of that nature.
What what is their function on
So
the project?
I've got about 6 or 7 different stakeholders. I've got the executive office of the president. I've got the U.S. Secret Service. I also have National Park Service, U.S. Park Police, and all of these individuals want to have access to the drawings. And the only way I could do that was to create a limited share group that allowed them access to just the drawings because it didn't exist with any of the existing share groups.
When something like that happens, it's generally better to send those people the documents rather than give them access to our system because they aren't collaborators on the project. So generally you would just send them a set of the drawings for them to have electronically when needed, not give them access to the system.
Understood. I was just trying to get them so they have the latest and greatest drawings and access to them at any given time, since there's just so many different questions coming down the pipeline every day.
No, I understand completely. But again, that, unfortunately in situations like that on that project, it's a one-off kind of thing. So,
Okay, I'll
that's
touch
just making
base
sure
with-
you send them to them. That's just part of it.
Okay.
And, we can touch base after this and talk about what's in there and how to fix everything. Because once a share group's created, it can't be removed.
Okay.
So I'll get with you later. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's how the share groups work. Again, if your vendor says, "Hey, I can't initiate this workflow," or I can't see these fields on this form, or I can't do this or something like that, 99% of the time, the problem is they are not in the share group, or it's not something that share group has the ability to do. So the first thing when you get one of those things, those questions from your vendors or somebody else on your team or anything like that, is go check and make sure they're in the right share group. That's what you definitely want to make sure is correct. And that's assuming they have access to the project. So the next thing that we have to do is budgets. And we're not going to go in depth into budgets in here. We're going to explain the budgets and how they work and give you some resources to reach out to. So the budgets that everybody is seeing in their reports coming out are coming from a form in here called budget items. Now, the budgets in the budget are by the Budget Development and Implementation, or BDI team for DGS. You guys as project managers, EPMs, APMs, users, don't do anything in here. This is maintained by the BDI team. So they will be, what's in here is the CIP budget and amendments and the allocations per the CIP process or the pool funded process or the MOU or whatever it is. BDI is still in the process of putting in and backfilling all this information on the existing projects. So not all of them are complete yet. But this is something you can come in here and look, but you should never touch. You can cause a lot of problems with a lot of things. And again, this is not something for you guys as PMs or EPMs to deal with. If you have questions on any of the account codes, budget items, budget amendments, total budgets, anything like that, please reach out to BDI at BDI_CCS@dc.gov and talk with them. Their team can help you figure out what's in here. And if there seems to be a discrepancy, they can help you. They'll come in and update it if need be. Okay, so that's the budget items and budget amendments. There is also a section down here in the project administration section called account codes. Again, this is all BDI and has to do with the project funding and info from SOAR and things like that. But these are the funding attributes associated with your project. This is where you would be able to find those for those of you that deal with that kind of stuff on your projects. Again, don't change anything, don't edit anything, but you can come in here and see what they are. The code structure is on this tab, and it tells you what each of the the sections of the account code is in the structure. So if you are doing your own requisitions and managing your own stuff in PASS, you can, once everything's backfilled and entered, find your funding attributes for your project in ProjectTeam. These account codes are then assigned to other things throughout the system and link everything back and forth. In the future, once we get everything backfilled, since we didn't have this information in Prolog, this is all brand new functionality. Once it's all set up, we'll be able to go back and link actuals and do lots of different reporting and dashboarding on funding. So future functionality. Okay. The master schedule, or schedules in general. So ProjectTeam is linked with P6. So your schedule is still maintained by Jawid in P6. So you need to make sure at least monthly, more frequent if needed, you are getting with Jawid and giving him your updates. Those updates in P6 nightly, ProjectTeam will go pull those updates from P6 and they will put them in the system as tasks. Okay? So all of this information in the tasks come from P6. You guys should never change these. Again, if you do change them, they're going to be up, overridden that night when P6 updates them again. So you're not fixing any issues. If anything is incorrect, get with Jawid and update it in P6, and it will correct itself in ProjectTeam. So this is just a repository of the activities master schedule from P6. That's all this is for. So don't create any new ones. Don't go in and edit any existing ones. You can come in and look at them. If you say, go to substantial completion and you find substantial completion and you click on it and you look at the dates, you're welcome to do that, but definitely don't change anything. Within ProjectTeam, you have another form that's for you guys to use that is called the DGS Master Schedule. Oops. There it is. DGS Master Schedules. So this form, you can use this to produce outputs of the schedule for your group as needed or for yourself as needed, or you can use this to identify changes that need to be made and send it to Jawid. So you can come in here, type in the subject. So you could say, master schedule updates for December 2020. Give a date on it, put any notes on it that you need. And then down here in tasks, you can use this add existing button. And this will pull up all of the tasks from the master schedule that are in ProjectTeam out of P6. You can select the ones that you want to include, whatever it is you want in there. Click add, and you can build yourself a little schedule down here and print it out and, make notes on it and things like that. You cannot edit these in here, but you can print it and handwrite it or make notes or something like that and send it over to Jawid to get updates. So talk to Jawid about how he wants to handle getting these. I'm not stepping on his toes. But this gives you, if you need to take a copy of the schedule to the meeting and you don't have the one from Jawid, come in here, add all your tasks. You've got it here. If somebody requests, hey, what are these 5 activities? What's the dates on them currently? Come in and add them and do a printout. Very simple. But you need to keep your schedule updated in P6 so all of this works and all the reports work. When we pull substantial completion, if that field's in a report, that's coming from the substantial completion task from P6 that we have pulled into ProjectTeam. So if those dates are wrong, get with Jawid. Have Jawid work with you to correct the schedule. Make sure the coding's correct in P6. We have come across a couple of recent projects where, we're all going by activity codes. That's how everything's structured in here. We've noticed a couple where instead of having 0700 as the activity code, it's just 700, and that's breaking the report and the dates aren't showing up. So if you have a report that comes out and you're like, I have my construction start and my substantial completion showing, but I got no design start. Go get with Jawid and make sure that design start has the right schedule code and has a date in there so that it's pulling into ProjectTeam correctly. So that ties back into the updates as well. Your dates will be correct in your updates and the reports if you're keeping your schedule up to date in P6. The next thing on the list is cost periods. You as the PM or your APM or whoever from your team needs to create cost periods for your project for the entire duration of the project. You can set them up once when you get the project. If it's going to be a 2-year project, put all of them in at once, or you can do them month by month. You just have to make sure you're doing it. So in the pay apps, when the vendor comes in to select their cost period, whatever you have in here for cost period, in that field for them to select. So make sure you have these. All cost periods, this giant one that we had before that most of you guys have seen was a catch-all for the Prolog migration. Cost periods that you enter need to be 1 month in duration. They should go from the first of the month to the last day of the month. Okay? And they should be labeled like this: May 2020, June 2020, and have first date to last date. And each month for the duration of the project should be in here, the billing duration of the project. If your architect comes on board August 2020 and your last project completes in August 2025, you're going to need to have a cost period for each month between those two dates. Okay? So they can't overlap. You know, there can only be one set of dates per cost period. So this can't be May 18th to June 30th because we've already covered May 18th. The rule for using cost periods, they do not need to match the billing period. That's why they're two separate sets of fields. The only rule is the billing end date from your vendor's invoice or pay app needs to fall within the cost period they've selected. So if the invoice ends on, or the pay app ends on June 18th, they would select this cost period because June 18th falls within this cost period. Okay? So again, you do not need to match the cost period to the billing period. Next thing is QRGs. So we've gone over all of this. Everybody's using it. Everybody's updating it. So as you guys all know, we have the DGS resource website through ProjectTeam with the QRGs and the training video. If your vendors don't know how to do something, refer them back to here first. If you can't answer their question, obviously try and help. But if you don't know, refer them to the QRGs or the videos. Have them go in here. If you've got new vendors that ask about training, the training videos and the QRGs are the training for them. Same for the most part with staff. We're going to be doing more of these lunch and learn type things that'll help augment that for staff, but it is self-training for everyone. So for those of you that aren't aware of this, the QRGs in here are structured by who does what. So if you'll notice, the first one is general use everyone. It's kind of basic stuff, you know, how to do different things. Then you get into vendor use, and you have the stuff that all the vendors are going to do. And then you have stuff that's specific for each vendor by type. You move down, you've got stuff for your client agencies. Then you've got the DGS CCSD team. So this is the stuff that you're going to be doing. These are all tailored for you guys. It's not the same, really the same QRG for the vendors as it is for the staff. Payment applications is a great example of that. You've got, for vendors, payment applications creating and submitting. And if you get down to the DGS CCSD team, you've got reviewing and approving a payment application. So they are tailored. And there are some non-linkable ones. And this one's coming. The other ones are, we're not posting some of these, like the budget and funding or budget and finance stuff. We're not telling people how to create account codes or how to create projects or how to do project funding or amendments. You know, the people that need to do these have them. So, but it's showing that these things are part of the duties of that group. So there is structure to this, and this is very helpful for everybody, vendors and staff alike. If you're not sure as a staff member what you're supposed to do with cost periods, come in here to your group and find the cost periods. If you're not sure how to use the master schedules, come in here. You know, so this is a great resource for everybody moving forward. The next one is what not to do. So just some quick things. Most of them have to deal with this section down here. So don't come in here and create, modify, share groups. Don't go into workflows and create or modify workflows. If you need a workflow or something, you need a special exemption, reach out to support. We'll help you out, because you can mess things up, especially if you modify existing ones. You can check permissions. Don't ever modify permissions or access. Don't customize forms. Don't create forms. You can break reports. You can cause lots of problems if you do that. Don't modify pick list options. If you need to add a pick list option to a in here, reach out to us. We'll work with you. That's actually pretty easy for us to do, and we'll do it holistically across the whole program if necessary, or whole portfolio. Don't create new projects. Please don't create new projects. Don't change the project name, the project number, or the project email address in project details. Don't create or modify budget items, budget amendments, or account codes. And don't create or new or modify schedule information in the tasks form. Again, the DGS master schedules form, that's for you guys. Do whatever you want in there. Just don't change the tasks in the task forms, because that's the P6 part. So I know we're running short of time, so I'm going to try and go through this. Project maintenance, forms versus files. Forms are records. They have data that goes into fields that can be searched, it can be reported on, and it's easier to find. Records can always be attached to, or files can always be attached to records. This file section is not generally to be used for much of anything. So do not just come in here and dump files. Nobody can find them. Nobody knows to look for them. They're not searchable. This is not where your records go. This is in here for one-off things that don't need to have a record associated with them. Okay. Project directory. One of the things I definitely want to touch on is adding businesses and adding contacts. So when you come in here to your project and you need to add a contact or a business, use the add business up top. Go through here and see if the business is already in here, please. When you do that, make sure if there's an abbreviation in their name, make sure it's not already in here spelled out. Make sure that it's not in here 3 times already. You can see right here, people are adding the same vendor more than once, not clicking on the existing one. Okay. If the vendor is not here under any of their iterations, like here, perfect example, IBTS, same exact company. Okay. So use the one that's there. If they're not in here, click create new, and you can fill out the fields and create a new company. If they are in there, select that company from the list. So like I work for Jacobs, so I can come in here and I can select Jacobs and add Jacobs as a company. So now Jacobs exists as a company on the project, but there's no contacts because I haven't added them. So I come up here and the same thing goes for contacts. I go, okay, I want to add a contact from Jacobs. I click add existing. Okay, I'm not in here as a Jacobs employee, so I'm going to add myself as a Jacobs employee. Put in my first name, last name, or you would be doing this as your vendor. Or for your vendor, I'm sorry. Seth Randall actually came up with a great thing today and showed me a trick that he found that none of us had ever seen before. Of course, that's not, if you have an email and that person has a signature in their email, you can actually highlight it and you can drag it right over. You don't even have to type it out. If this person's email address was written in here somewhere, you could drag the email address over as well. So you don't even have to retype it. So it's very easy. And you see, I have this right up to here. So I'm just dragging. I don't even have to click on the other form so it doesn't disappear. Okay. Fill this out. Those are the only fields that you need to fill out, is first name, last name, and work email address. When they get the notification, once you invite them to your project, it'll allow them to fill in their title and prefix and, all the other stuff that's in there. Okay. Hit save when you're done. Once you're done adding the contacts for that company that you need to add, if they're not already existing, you can come back into the project directory and you'll see this invite button. You don't have to invite somebody to your project if you put them in the project directory. There are plenty of people from companies that, you know, are associated with the project but not collaborating in project team. In that case, don't invite them. If they do need to collaborate in project team, click the invite button. Okay. When you click that, there's the ability to set them up in the share group and all that stuff. So I don't have, well, see, when I click that, it asks me what share group I want to put him in. So you would pick the share group for that user. This is new functionality. You no longer have to go add them to the project, wait for them to accept the invitation, and then remember to go back and put them in the share group. As soon as you click invite, pick the share group that they go to. When they come in, they're already going to be in there and set up. Okay? Makes it much, much easier. Get back to my agenda. Again, we went over share groups earlier. Make sure you're doing that. So, a couple minutes, project documentation. As a PM for DGS, you're responsible for documenting everything to do with the project in project team for your stuff. And you're also responsible for making sure that all of your vendors put all the documentation in project team the way they need to. So everything for the project needs to be in project team, and it needs to be done correctly per the processes and per the QRGs. When you create records, make sure that you're sharing them with the share groups that need to see them. Don't click all users on project. You know, if it's something the architect needs to see, share it with the architect. If the architect, the GC, and the commissioning company need to see it, click all three of them. At minimum, always click project manager so that all of the DGS people can see it. Okay, but make sure you're sharing. If you add your GC and put them in the GC share group, make sure you go back to all those records that existed before you had a GC that they need to see and share them with them. The drawings, the specifications, any of that stuff. You need to share them with the share group so that they can see it. Use the share groups, not the people or the companies. Don't share with people specifically. Don't share with companies specifically. If you share with the general contractor share group and the superintendent from the general contractor leaves the job and you get a new one, all you do is put the new superintendent in the general contractor share group. They can already see everything that was shared. If you shared everything with the vendor by name, you've got to now go back and share everything with everybody else again because they can't see it. So use the share groups, not the people, not the companies when sharing. Make sure what you're putting in is contemporaneous, current, and correct data because that's what's going in the reports. The reports go out everywhere. Make sure your records are up to date. When you get a contract or a change order is issued, go into project team and put them in. Make sure they're there because people need them. We do lots of reporting on that stuff. We do lots of financial stuff with that. There's stuff we do in the back end that you guys don't even see that goes to people. Okay. The data needs to be there for that stuff to work. If it's in there, it will save you time. You will not have to go back and do these last minute go update because we're pulling this report and we need the data and yours is missing. If it's in there to begin with, you don't have to worry about that. If it's in there, your EPM can go pull a report on your project. You don't have to go meet with them and explain or have a phone call. Your client agency can go pull that data. You don't have to go have the phone call or meeting with them. If they need to see the drawings, they can go into project team and see the drawings. So it will save you time. Make sure that the people who are responsible for putting it in are the ones putting it in as well. You know, if the architect is responsible for putting in the drawings, make sure the architect puts in the drawings right. There is data symbiosis in any system, but especially in project team. If your change order is not in the system or your contract is not in the system, your vendor can't enter their pay app. So things are tied together and there's a symbiotic relationship between the data, not just for reporting. So make sure you have everything that needs to be in there so they can use it. Workflows. Anything that needs to be approved in project team officially has a workflow. Use the workflows. That's the approval. There's no need, if it's approved in project team through a dedicated process that's outlined by DGS, there's no need to send another record. The approval is documented when you approve it through the workflow. Action items. If you need things done by somebody, send them an action item from the record and project team and have them make sure follow up, make sure they're responding back to those action items. That covers you and it covers them. So those are, you know, that's your day-to-day use, things like that. Training and support. For your training and support, you know, reach out, use the QRGs and videos, go to ProjectTeam. We already covered updates. Reports and dashboards. Most of you guys know how to run reports on your project real quick. Within the project, click on the Reports tab. Over here, go to My Company Access. Standard reports. These are the reports. These are two things we're testing right now, so those will be gone. But these are the reports that you guys can run. Highlight them with one click. Click this button. It'll run that report. So you guys can pull your own reports, see how you're doing. If you want to see what your weekly project update's going to look like when it runs on Wednesday or Friday, come in here. This is the same report. It'll pull it right for your project. So you can come in here and take a look at that. Again, I'm a training project, so not everything's filled out. So you guys, you know, we've given you access to the same reports that other people are running, so you can check up on yourself. So I know we're 2 minutes over on our time. If anybody's still around and has questions, you know, we're going to go ahead and open it up to questions. Well, great.
I'm sorry, I had a quick question. So when you're doing things like adding in change orders, things like that, there's a form in here for that, or nothing goes in files?
Correct. There's a form called change orders. That's where you enter your change order information, and there's a QRG on how to do all that. Most of the things in ProjectTeam are named with the same as the record. So change orders are change orders, contracts are contracts, potential change orders are called potential change orders. They're all under the forms, and the QRGs exist for all of them. And they're, like I said at the beginning, next month on the 15th and the 30th of December, we will send out invites, but it's also in the email blast from SharePoint. There will be a specific lunch and learn for contracts, change orders, potential change orders, and payment applications.
And also, when you're uploading the contracts and so forth, they don't go where files are. They have a certain place where you upload.
They go as attachments to the record. So if you're doing a contract, you will go through the QRG and enter the contract, and then drag and drop an attachment of the actual contract to that record. And that's all outlined in the QRGs.
John,
There's no need to use the file section for any of that.
What are the answers to the
John?
questions in chat? Because you got 4 questions in chat, and I'm curious about the answers.
I was about to ask, one of the questions in the chat was from me. Hi, everybody, this is Shawnice. I was asking with regards to the cost periods, will the system alert the vendor if they are duplicating the cost period from a previous pay app?
No, because there is no lock on one pay app per
Because I
cost
know
period.
that in Prologue.
Yep, it was locked in Prologue where they could only do one invoice per cost period. It's not locked in ProjectTeam for that.
So they can duplicate the cost periods each time and it wouldn't matter in the system.
So that's all part of the PM's review. They're supposed to be checking the cost periods as part of the pay app review before it ever goes over to be an invoice.
Okay.
Let me see if I can pull up chat. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I can't see the chat. Okay, first one from Cassidy, DCPS coordinator to client agency coordinator, so other groups could use. No, unfortunately, Cassidy, that is a Salesforce field and is named for that purpose. The client agency coordinator would really be your client agency contact that would be listed on the project information form. So it's unfortunate, but no, there is a purpose for that name. Will the system alert the vendor if they select? No, that's the one I just did for Shawnice. Will there be any more webinar trainings for the new vendors, or is it self-training from this point? It is self-training from this point. There's nothing planned for the vendors. So they have the ability to reach out to support, and they have the video. The classes were already done, so they can go watch those as well, and the QRGs.
Okay, scroll up so we can see the answer to what Tanisha said. Tanisha.
That's what I'm doing. Project end date can be extended, correct? Should it be updated? It's up to the PM to keep that up to date every week. That's one of those weekly update checks. if the project end date changes, the PM should change the project end date in the field. Okay, I think, yep, that's it for chat questions. Anybody else have anything?
I think Mohammed's got his hand up.
Yeah.
After, I'll go.
Hey, John, can you show us how to run reports that are automatically generated and emailed to the architect and general contractor? I attempted to do that last week, but every time it sent it out to the individuals I had on the address list, it just sent blank forms.
Are you talking about scheduling your own reports?
You got it.
Yeah, it's not set up for you guys to do that.
Okay.
So we can, again, you and I can touch base and see if there's a way around it, but no, I don't have any way to show you guys that because it's not a function that's generally for you guys.
Okay. Is it something that we're going to be looking at potentially adding later on down the line?
Not really, because those reports, we can talk about it. I'm not going to say no, but there are no reports currently that are designed for external people, like vendors. So there is nothing to schedule for them. So, and we didn't have plans. They can run their own system reports in ProjectTeam themselves. So again, we can touch base and see what you're trying to get. But as of right now, no, that's not planned.
Okay. All right.
Emeka?
Yeah, John, I have a question. I know we've talked about this in the past. So even though we're not going to be the ones uploading drawings, the architects will be doing that. I initially, when this got launched, I tried using it, and I could. It's that field is not very user friendly, and you did mention that you guys are working on introducing some other features that could better the system, like making it be OCR capable, and also for drawing updates, just so that it's a lot more user friendly. Because I don't want to waste everybody's time. But if you pull it up, you'll see exactly what I'm.
I know what you're talking about. There will be OCR capability. That's a ProjectTeam thing. We have heavily customized an off-the-shelf system, so we do not. It is not a custom system that we built from scratch. So I don't have any updates on when they're rolling the OCR out. I know it's coming, but you know it's a little time consuming because they have to go drawing by drawing, but they're always going to have to go drawing by drawing because that's how you manage the slip sheets and revisions and everything else. So the QRGs are very, very detailed on how they do all of that. So we're going to make it better where we can, but it's, putting in all the drawings one by one is still going to be a function they have to do.
Thank you. One other question I have, is there a plan to standardize the DGS boilerplates for GCs and architects? The reason I'm bringing this up is I've done a few little projects, and right now we're doing a big one still in the AE phase, and the contract got mocked up, and we've spent a lot of time going back and forth trying to clarify or accommodate the AE as much as possible. But I'm thinking if we have like a standardized contract that is loaded up in the system, one for for architects and engineers, consultants, and then one for GCs. Maybe you can even have one for full-blown contract and small.
We don't have anything to do with contracts on ProjectTeam. That's a question for procurement and legal. So I can't help you with that.
Gotcha.
John, one last thing. Will the system alert the vendor of a duplication of the billing period?
No, because again, it's not locking them. So if they,
because so how do we tell if a billing period is being duplicated?
it should be part of the review, or by the PM, or there are some cases where there's two invoices within a billing period for two different things. So again, that's up to the PM and their review.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep. Anybody else?
I think
Anybody?
one pushing this point, this is Kesla. I believe there is a billing period and then there is a cost period, right? So they can have a payment application within like a billing period of October 1st till October 16th, and the cost period is October 1st to the 30th, and they can have another one starting the 16th to the 30th, but use the same cost period, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it's just as long as you can have, so those can be separate but within the same cost period.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's also occasionally a case where a vendor, bills for a period of performance and can't bill for something, and an agreement is made to let them bill a second invoice for that other thing when they get, back up or something like that. So they can have two invoices in the same billing period. So there's a reason it's not locked, but
I
yes.
understand the reason. I mean, I get what you're saying, John. I understand the reason. I'm just saying as a notification to the PM. Sometimes I've seen multiple cost periods for invoices that aren't even in the billing period, the billing in period. So that's why I'm asking the question if a notification goes out to the vendor when they go into select, if the PM hasn't created the cost period and they go and they select the May for June or something like that. That's I was just asking.
No, I got you. And no notifications, and the PMs definitely, that's something they should be paying attention to.
Okay.
The vendors, and that would be a reason to definitely send the invoice back if all that's wrong. Obviously, that's going to pull over to the merge template and all that.
Got
But if the vendor doesn't see the cost period, they hopefully, if there is a note in the QRG for them to reach out to the PM if they don't have the right cost period there, and hopefully they're doing that.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep. Anything else? All right. Well, great. As I said earlier, you guys feel free to reach out to support or to me or whatever if you have any questions that come up after this. If you want to take this again, we'll offer it again on the 30th, or if you have colleagues that need to come, they can come on the 30th. And then next month, pay attention, wait for the invites, and come do the one for contracts, change orders, payment applications, and potential change orders. Thank you very much. Y'all have a great evening.
Okay,
Thank
John,
you.
do I stay? You want me to stay so I can handle what I asked you?
No, let's set up a meeting for that, Donna.
Okay.
I've got a bunch of other stuff I got to follow up on, but
just email me when you're ready.
well, okay, I'll email me your availability next
My
week.
availability is every day.
All right, I'll see what I have available next week. I know I'm tied up tomorrow and
Yeah,
Friday.
you're more tied up than I am. So just email me when you're ready, and I'll just get ready with you.
Okay. I have
All
a
right.
meeting with Ashley. Maybe we can talk to her and get both of those together. So.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.